mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episodes 1 and 2 of Hulu's series, Only Murders in the Building. Actually, let me start with the episode title. So the episode titles are Person of Interest and Framed, respectively, for episodes 1 and 2. Person of Interest is a term, that's a pretty obvious episode title. That's the term that Detective Williams uses to kind of let the group know that that's how they are looked at in the eyes of law enforcement, is that right now they're persons of interest. But, they weren't able to find the murder weapon, so they end up being released. So that's why they're not in custody shortly into the season. And then Framed is like a nice double entendre for that second episode because, obviously they're working toward the idea that the group has been framed, but then also the episode focuses on this painting by this, what's her name, Rose Collins or something like that. Rose Cooper, sorry. Focuses on this painting, which obviously a painting is framed, so it's a nice little double entendre there. But anyway, I want to start by saying, even when this show is not at its funniest, I really just enjoy being in this world. Like the rapport that the characters have with one another, it keeps me here. The Clue-esque kind of look and feel and tone of the show, it keeps me here. I love the music. It's like very, it's like mysterious but whimsical, and I think that really fits in with the tone of the show as well. I love those animations in the opening credits. I love the look of the Arconia, the way it looks kind of like, you could tell it's really old, but it still looks like it's for people with a lot of money, like it's like super fancy. I even love how they dress. Like I feel like Mabel gives me like this very like chic but like 1960s chic, like she doesn't dress for 2022. And then none of them do, really. They all feel like they never quite left the 60s. It's just that Oliver and Charles just dress like regular old guys. And Mabel kind of dresses like somebody who was like rich in the 60s, like a Hollywood star, but just not of this time period. But I just love the look and vibe of the show. I love the rapport. I love the humor. I like the mystery. It's always entertaining. It's engaging. I'm shocked at how much I like this show, considering my disdain for Steve Martin and Martin Short coming into this series, which is why I never watched it originally. I watched it way after the fact, but I heard so much good stuff about it. I checked it out, and I'm like, wow, I really enjoy this show. So I'm excited that we got it back so fast. I really enjoyed these first 2 episodes. I'm totally ready to go wherever they're going to take us, ready to go through this mystery. So let's do a quick recap of like where we stand. And then I'm going to approach, at the very least, this video with a kind of a different take than I do other shows that I cover. I don't know if I'm going to do that for every episode. I am going to cover every episode. I don't know if I'm going to approach them like this because of the nature of this show. And what I mean by that is I felt like with season 1, every episode ended with the goal of making you suspect a new person. Like, the episode ends like, oh, okay, now I meant to believe this person is guilty. Now I'm meant to believe this person is guilty. This season doesn't seem to be doing that. So I don't know if I'm going to, if I'm going week by week, if I'm going to take the same approach to each video, but I'm going to take a different approach to this specific video, talking about 1 and 2. But first, let's talk about where we stand right now. So at the end of last season, we found Mabel hovering over Bunny Folger, who was dead, blood on her, blood on Mabel with her knitting needle, and everybody was getting arrested for this murder. We immediately pick up this season with the group being interrogated, and then, like I said at the top of the video, once it's discovered that they don't even have a murder weapon, which was a knife and not a knitting needle, I think that's an important clue. Once Mabel discovers that, they are then released, and then that's when we find out about the whole, they're just persons of interest. And they set about finding not just the real murderer, but they also want to clear their names because they each have a vested interest in getting their names cleared. So Mabel wants to just start doing art, presumably without everybody staring at her all the time. She wants to try to do art professionally. Oliver wants to start this series based on the podcast with Amy Schumer, where they're going to, I think she said, gamify it. It sounds kind of like this show. Like this show is kind of like a show that's based on a fictional podcast or a collection of real podcasts, like these murder mystery podcasts like Serial that exist. So like what Amy Schumer is pitching is essentially this show, but I don't know. She lost me at gamification. I don't. If that's a clue that there's going to be a Only Murders in the Building video game coming at some point, good to know. I guess I'm not going to get it. And then Charles is set to co-star in a reboot of Brazos, where Brazos is going to be played by a woman now. He's going to be Uncle Brazos. So they all have things that they can't get done as long as people look at them as potential murderers. So they got to clear their names, and of course, they can help build up their podcast by having a second season where they talk about a new murder. So that's where we stand right now after these first 2 episodes. So like I said a moment ago, I'm going to talk about this episode a little bit differently. And what I want to do is I want to spend time talking about the things that I think the show, I don't want to necessarily say the show wants us to focus on, but the things that I think that we should be focusing on. Now, I made a list, and if you know me in real life, you know I like making lists. I made a list of items that throughout these first 2 episodes are things that, and when I say items, I don't mean that literally like a wallet. I mean like just things at play that I think are going to play a role in how we arrive at figuring out who is behind this murder. Now, what I will say is what I don't want the show to do, which I feel like they did last season, I want to be able to look back and see, okay, the clues to whoever did this were there. Whereas I felt like there's no way you could have guessed Jan was the murderer until the very end of the season. It's like, and Tim Kono had a girlfriend. And it was Jan. And then it felt like we spent the whole season trying to collectively figure out this mystery. And we're thinking we got all these clues. And they're just like, and it's some shit you could have never guessed. I don't like that. And I heard a whole lot of negative feedback about how the season ended because of that. So I hope they fix that this time and make it something where, I know they're concerned about, this being like the Reddit era. Everyone is trying to guess everything and predict it ahead of time so they can get internet points. So I feel like what probably happened for season 1 was like, if we make it something where you can figure it out, somebody on Reddit's going to figure it out on episode 1 and the whole fun and twist of it's going to be spoiled. So we're going to come out of left field with something that no one could have guessed. But then that makes you feel like you were hustled, Like we spent all that time thinking that we were all collectively watching this show and working toward figuring out this murderer just to find out that we never had a chance. It feels like you got the rug pulled out from under you. And I don't want them to do that this season, but I'm not going to know if they're doing that or not until it's over. So I'm going to operate on the assumption that what we need to know to figure out this murder will be presented to us on the screen. So because of that, like I said, I made a list of things that I think are important. So the first thing is Bunny's bird. And actually, Bunny's bird was the first thing on my list before the end of episode 2. Just because as soon as I saw that she had a bird that, a parrot, that's repeating everything that it said, I'm like, okay, this parrot probably saw something. And at some point, this parrot is going to say something that's going to clue them in to who might have done this. Just a clue. By the end of episode 2, we actually take it a step farther where the bird just says, I know who did it. Obviously, we're not going to have much of a season if we open episode 3 and the bird is like, so-and-so did it. No, but I think the bird will give us a clue, and I think the bird is going to play an important role in at least moving us forward. So I'm still kind of mulling over what I think that is going to be, especially because I didn't expect the I know who did it thing at the end of episode 2. So I don't think the bird's going to say who did it, but I think the bird might repeat something that the person who did it said. But here's the problem, though. The bird is in Bunny's apartment. Bunny was discovered in Mabel's apartment, right? So how would the bird know who did it? Unless the bird maybe observed an argument between Bunny and someone else in Bunny's apartment before Bunny went to Mabel's apartment. But why would Bunny go to Mabel's apartment? So, because I thought originally that she was found in in Bunny's apartment, but Oliver and Charles went there to go get her. So they went to her apartment to go get her, and then we saw it several times these first 2 episodes of her walking in, hanging her coat up. So what was Bunny doing in her apartment, and how could the bird know who did it if the bird wasn't there? So interesting things to say the least, but the bird's going to give us a clue. And like I said, I think it's going to be like the bird is going to repeat something that was said in an argument, and it's going to be a big clue. But keep an eye on the bird. The painting. And now when I say the painting, I don't mean just the painting, right? I mean everything that comes along with it, because it's not just a potential connection to the murder. They said, whoever has the painting is the person who committed the murder, which we kind of throw that out because the painting's all over the place. But also we now know that there's 2 of them. So where's the authentic painting? How did a replica come into play? When did a replica come into play? So lots of interesting questions there. But more importantly, Charles' father is in the painting. So now it has a personal connection. And then we also know, because of that Charles was having an affair with both Rose Cooper. Why do you want to say Collins? Rose Cooper, the painter, and with Bunny's mother. So he was getting around. And then also we saw that he was being taken out of the apartment building where they lived, where Rose lived. He was being taken out, and he had like an undershirt, and I think he had like boxers on maybe, and there was blood on it. So there's some sort of connection there. I think I have an idea, but we'll get to that in a moment. Because it's the second to last thing that I had that I want to talk about, and I think these things are connected. The elevator that Mabel discovered in Bunny's closet, I think, is going to be important as well. They tried to use it for this plan to put the painting back in there, but I think ultimately the elevator is going to come into play, and like whoever did it, this is how they got in and out. Somebody got in and out via that elevator. We also saw a flashback where the architect of the house used that elevator and I guess maybe many other secret areas to just be a peeping Tom, but I think that's going to come into play as well. How? I don't know yet. This Alice chick that's played by Cara Delevingne, no, too suspicious. I don't trust her at all. Sudden interest in Mabel out of the blue. She's into art, which is interesting because Mabel is into art, but it's also interesting because there's an art tie-in that's outside of Mabel, which is the painting with Charles' father in it. I think that Cara Delevingne's Alice is probably someone of significance that we just don't know who she is yet. She could be an illegitimate daughter of Bunny. She could be Jan's daughter. She could be maybe Rose Cooper's granddaughter. But what I think is probably the case is that whatever happened in the scene where Charles' father is being brought out in, like I said, in like a t-shirt with blood on it and like an undershirt and boxers, and he was being brought out of there, and they said that Rose Cooper disappeared mysteriously. Whoever Alice is, she's going to be related to Rose Cooper, is my guess. Is that the idea is like either Charles' father killed Rose Cooper, or it is believed that Charles' father killed Rose Cooper, and Alice she would be too young to be the daughter of, say, Charles's father and Rose Cooper, because that would mean that would put her somewhere in the range of Charles' age, which she's clearly not. But I think she's going to be a descendant in some way of some victim that was involved in Charles' father's past. Remains to be seen who, but that's what I think right now. That's my the only reason that's not my active theory for who I think is behind this period is the fact that Alice is such a one-off and so kind of strange. And her storyline doesn't even really feel like this whole thing with her and Mabel and the art doesn't really, it's okay. Now, when they start making out, I fucked with that part. But like other than that, like I don't really know. But it's too obvious. She stands out too much. She's I think if you polled 100 fans of this show and said after episode 2, who do you think committed this murder? I feel like 90 of those people would say Alice. So like I don't think Alice is. I'm not officially willing to say I think it's Alice because I feel like that's too obvious, but I do think there's a part of it that could be Alice that would still make it like interesting. Like maybe Alice did or didn't do it, but Alice is gonna have some relevance other than just random art gallery owner that took an interest in Mabel. No, she's somehow affiliated. She's somehow related to this. She chose to get with Mabel at this specific time. She's involved in some way. And then we have 14 and Savage, the two things that Mabel said that Bunny said as like her last words. And now I wanted to add too, Mabel got a history of lying. So we know that she didn't mention about her, I don't want to say relationship because it makes it sound like they had something different than they had, but like her situation with how she knew Tim Kono last season, that she held back until super late in the season. And then in this season, in these first 2 episodes, at first she only mentions the 14. Then they see the savage on the back of the painting, and then she's like, oh yeah, that too. So like she has a history of like keeping important details secret. So it makes me wonder if Bunny might have said even more than just 14 and Savage. Now I don't know what that those things mean. I'm guessing that 14 is probably an apartment number for someone who lives there. There was I don't know the apartment numbers for everyone, but there was some scene where somebody was going to one of their apartment, either Oliver, Charles, or Mabel, and they were at apartment 16, I believe. I believe I saw that, that's what made me think when she said 14. My immediate thought was, oh, she might be talking about somebody who lives 2 doors down from whoever it was that was in 16. So since that thought entered my head, I'm pretty sure that that's what was said. But yeah, those are things that I think we kind of need to focus on. Those are my guesses and my theories so far. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And then I have a couple of things I want to wrap up with real quick. One of the only things that kind of irks me about this show, I don't particularly like how Detective Williams is always so angry with them for like no reason. Like I feel like she's way angrier with them than she needs to be. Like they haven't done anything. Like, okay, when they're doing their own police work that stepped on her toes, fine. But she's so mad at them in these first 2 episodes, and I'm like, Mabel made a good point. Like, you got 3 people locked up who just helped solve 2 murders that you couldn't solve, and now you don't have a murder weapon, and you got us in here locked up like criminals. Like, and then she got mad at them when she's kicking them out. I'm like, why are you mad at them? Like, okay, like she has no reason to believe that these 3 are involved in this murder. And well, I'm speaking way outside of my neck. Mabel was found over her with blood on. She has reason to believe it, but she doesn't have reason to get mad at them because she can't prove it. I liked how Mabel had Charles saved in her phone as Charles parentheses old, like she's got multiple Charles, but like that's how she remembers Steve Martin's Charles. I loved having Shirley MacLaine show up in episode 2 as Leonora Folger. Did she determine that Charles and Oliver and Mabel weren't guilty by smelling them? And if so, I would like to point out that she did not actually ever smell Mabel. I don't know if that's going to become important at all, but I noted that she smelled Charles, she smelled Oliver, and then she grabbed Mabel's face and said something like, you sweet child, or something like that, and then said they didn't do it. She never smelled Mabel. I don't know what that's about, but just pointing that out. I also loved her trying to cut that cheese, because like that would have been funny just on the face of like, okay, there's an old person who just can't quite see this cheese. But they had the line that earlier established that she's like I can't really see straight ahead. She's like, there's like a bubble in the middle or something, but I can see great from peripheral. And then you see her like trying to chop the cheese and she's missing it. And then I think she like turned her head to the side and then like stabbed it and then ate it. Like, that was way funnier with the setup line of the peripheral vision stuff from earlier. And then my favorite line of the episode, of both of the first 2 episodes, that I swear nobody is going to catch, and the only reason I caught it was because I watched stuff with the closed captions on. But when they had the memorial for Bunny in Bunny's apartment, and the new, what is he, like, I don't know, we'll call her the head of the Tenants Association, whatever title she has. Her name was Nina. And she gets up and speaks, and she says all this kind of stuff about how she's in charge now. And that Harold guy, like, can't stand her. They talk all kinds of crap about her. Scene continues. Everything's fine. I think, and once the thing was already over, there's a thing where it's like, I think Charles was, like, coming back in, and somebody was showing Nina out. And you could barely hear it, but they just had the closed captions. She was like, thanks for making it all about you at Bunny's memorial. I thought that was so funny, because if it had just been out in the open, it wouldn't have been as funny. But the fact that it was like set in the background, like the focus was whatever was happening with Charles in the foreground, and then you see her being like shown out of the door with that comment, I thought that was great. So, yep, well, this video went longer than I expected. Yeah, so really enjoyed these first 2 episodes. Let me know what you think about my theories in the comments. Let me hear your theories, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday for episode 3. Peace.